My name is Alexis Carter, but everyone calls me Lex. I am 33. A bank rep tells me I owe $1.25 million on a house I have never lived in, plus a home equity line for $180,000. I work in Chicago as a compliance and forensic analyst. I spend my days tracing fraud for a living. Now my life turns into a case file with my name on every page. My sister Brianna always reaches for the shortcut. She likes attention gifts and headlines more than hard plans. When money gets tight, she smiles, posts, and asks family to float her. When the real crisis hits, she does something worse. She takes my name. She takes my number. She signs a mortgage and opens credit I never touched. She builds a luxury life on my record and calls it deserved. She has no idea what I am building in silence. I keep clean logs. I save every email. I understand bank rails, KYC steps, and audit trails. I know where device fingerprints live and how mailing addresses get changed. I start a binder tab every section and timestamp every call. While my mother begs for peace, I prepare evidence. When Brianna realizes I am not the easy sister anymore, she will not meet drama. She will meet a professional response. This is not revenge. This is respect. This is justice. This is the boundary you draw when people treat the reliable one as an endless well. If you want to see how a quiet woman turns a private crime into a public reckoning and how a golden child becomes a cautionary tale, stay with me. Subscribe before you hear the ending that makes a room go silent at Sunday dinner. Minutes after that call, the bank emails the documents with my forged signature. 3 days later, an IRS letter lands, and I learn this theft is bigger than a house. I grow up south of the city after my parents split. My mother, Elaine, works nights at a hospital and picks up shifts on weekends. I am 12 when the divorce lands. Brianna is 4 years younger. The roles form fast and never get renegotiated. She is the spark, the smile, the story. I am the list, the ride, the plan. I pack dinners, set alarms, and tape school schedules to the fridge. When a pipe leaks, I find the shutoff. When a teacher calls, I show up. The pattern starts small. Over time, it becomes how everyone expects me to keep the house running. The favoritism is not loud. It is steady. It shows up in money and in attention. On June 10, 2016, Brianna calls after midnight. She is 21 and $1,400 behind on rent. My mother texts me, please help her just this time. I move the money from my emergency fund and pay the landlord by debit card. The next morning, my mother thanks me with one line. Then she asks if I can also cover Brianna's phone bill for 60 days. I say yes. I save the receipt. On October 5, 2019, Brianna wants a camera for her channel. She says a brand will sponsor her soon. The price is $1,800. I say no. She cries to our mother. A week later, a bill arrives from a card my mother opened to help her get started. The address on file is mine because my address is stable. I pay off the card and close it to stop fees. My mother tells me I always land on my feet. She says Brianna just needs one clean shot. I note the date in my budget file. Favoritism paid, $1,800. The third example lands on August 18, 2020. Brianna needs dental work and says the clinic will send her to collections. The estimate is $940. I ask for the invoice. She sends a photo that cuts off the clinic name. I pay the amount anyway because I am tired of the drama. I ask her to send me a signed repayment plan. She never does. When I push, my mother says, family does not keep score. I do not argue. I write down the amount. The fourth example is the largest. On January 9, 2023, Brianna says she has an engagement and a big move coming. She says her fiancé works in finance. She needs 2 months of a luxury lease as a bridge until the brand money hits. $3,600 in total. I wire it with a note in the memo line. Temporary support, return by May. She never returns it. When I ask my mother to help enforce the promise, she says I am making trouble. She says I should be happy for my sister. I hear the old message underneath. Be useful. Do not make noise. By 30, I have built the opposite of noise. I am a compliance and forensic analyst in the loop. I live in Logan Square and pay $2,100 in rent. I brown bag lunch. I carry no credit balance. I set my student loans on a snowball until the last one hits zero. I keep a down payment account and push money into it every 2 weeks. In November 2023, that account reaches $42,600. My credit score sits at 790 and I track it monthly. I do not chase status. I chase safety. My life is not glamorous, and it is mine. Brianna chooses a different lane. She is a micro-influencer with a lifestyle feed. She posts hauls and morning routines. She tags brands and uses aspirational captions. Sometimes she cries on camera and talks about anxiety. Sometimes she flashes a designer bag and says manifestation works. The gap between image and facts grows wide. When people ask how she pays for her apartment, she says she is in love with a man named Jace who travels for finance. I ask to meet him. There is always a reason it cannot happen. A flight, a meeting, a time zone. In late January 2024, Brianna invites me to a cafe on Michigan Avenue. She wears a new coat and a salon blowout. She tells me she bought a house in Lake Forest. She says the kitchen is all marble and the yard will fit a pool. I ask how she handled the down payment. She waves it off and says she has been saving and that Jace helped. When I ask for the address, she changes the subject and asks about my tiny apartment and my boring job. I walk home with a knot in my stomach. I tell myself to let it go. I tell myself I am projecting. I go back to my ordinary routines. I go back to work. The crisis begins on March 12, 2024 at 9:11 in the morning. A woman from Lakeside Financial asks why January and February mortgage payments have not posted for 720 Oak Ridge Drive in Lake Forest. My mouth goes dry. I say I do not have a mortgage. She reads my name. She reads my social number. I ask her to email the file. She says she will. I hang up and set my phone on the table. I can hear my pulse. I feel my chest float and settle. I do what I always do when I am scared. I make space between the feeling and the next action. Minutes later, the email lands. I open the attachment and see the full application. My job title, my employer, my salary. A signature that looks like mine but is not mine. The document shows a jumbo mortgage for $1.25 million. I see a draw schedule for a home equity line of $180,000. I see a mailing address set to the Lake Forest property. I do not cry. I do not call anyone. I write down the time and save the file to a new folder with a neutral name. I type the address into a map and flip to satellite. The house is big, symmetrical, and set on a manicured acre. The listing photos show a kitchen island with a distinctive marble pattern. My brain catalogs the details without asking me. Later that afternoon, Brianna posts a story with a champagne glass emoji. The angle is tight, but the marble veins match the listing photo. New beginnings, she writes. I set my phone face down and breathe. I do not send a message. I do not comment. I take a pen and write one clean line on the first page of a fresh notebook. Do not guess. Prove. I know how fraud moves through rails. I speak that language at work and it gives me a way to stay calm now. I understand how addresses get changed. I know what a device fingerprint is and where it lives in a log. I know that banks have teams for anomaly detection and that mortgage servicers keep call recordings. I do not act on that knowledge yet. I am building the foundation of a response and waiting for the next clear piece. 3 days later, the next piece lands. The IRS mails me a letter asking me to verify my identity for a tax return I did not file. The number in the top right is 4883C. Someone used my name to claim a $22,000 refund. My fear clicks into place as a structure. This is not a one-off. This is a pattern with branches and dates, mortgage, HELOC, credit lines, tax refund. I sit at my kitchen table and align the papers edge to edge so I can see the size of what I am dealing with. My first calls go to information, not to family. I confirm with the bank that the email they sent is complete. I ask for the name of the closing agent on the mortgage. I ask for the date the HELOC draws posted. I ask for copies of any address change requests. The rep says certain items will require formal requests. I say, I understand. I capture her name and the time. I print a copy of the IRS letter and slip it into a plastic sleeve. But they do not know what I am building. They think the reliable one will vent for a day, cry, and then roll over. That has been the script since we were kids. It will not be the script now. I do not ask my mother for permission to act. I do not ask Brianna for the story she will never tell straight. I pause. I plan. I choose my next move. That is when everything changes. The letter from the IRS is not just another shock. It is the lever that tips me from quiet dread into calm action. The foundation is set. The pattern is visible. The stakes are no longer private. The next step will define everything that follows. The final straw is not the money. It is the family response when I show them the truth. 3 days from now, I make a decision I cannot take back. March 15. The IRS letter sits on my table. It asks me to verify a tax return I did not file. The code on the top line is 4883C. The amount tied to the return is $22,000. I line the pages up. Mortgage for $1.25 million. Home equity line for $180,000. 4 new cards with $120,000 in limits. A refund claim in my name. This is not a one-time mistake. This is a plan with dates and branches. I call Brianna. No answer. I send one text. Call me now. I know about the house. Silence. I call my mother. She tells me I must be confused. She says Brianna has a finance fiance who handles the big things. She says I should not ruin joy with suspicion. I keep my voice even. I say the loan is in my name. I have the file. My mother sighs and says we can all talk at Sunday dinner on March 31. I hang up. I realize the final straw is not the money. It is the denial in my own family when I show them proof. That night, I make a decision I do not take back. I will be completely self-reliant. I will stop acting like the family fix line. I will treat this like the cases I manage at work. Calm, thorough, documented. I open a fresh folder on my laptop. I name it with the date, not with her name. I draft a simple plan. Stabilize accounts, build an evidence trail, engage the right agencies, set boundaries and hold them. On March 16, I place fraud alerts at all 3 credit bureaus. I freeze my credit. I pull my reports and print them. I circle the new trade lines and inquiries. I list the dates. November mortgage origination. December through February payments from an account I do not control. January 20th first, HELOC draw. March 1st second draw. March 12th delinquency call. March 15th IRS identity letter. I staple each stack and label the top page. On March 17, I complete the FTC identity theft report. I print the reference number. I file a police report with the Financial Crimes Unit. The desk officer gives me a case number that starts with the year. I write it on the inside cover of my binder. I ask for a copy once the report is typed. I understand that it helps extend fraud alerts to 7 years. I call the IRS identity line listed in the letter. I verify my identity. I complete IRS Form 14039. I mail it certified with a copy of the police report number on a cover page. On March 18, I retain counsel for civil and criminal coordination. My attorney sends preservation letters to the mortgage servicer, to the title company, and to the closing agent. The letters instruct each party to retain recordings, emails, and application files. Subpoenas will follow if needed. My attorney advises me to document all contacts and to keep my language factual. I do not post online. I do not argue in messages. I let the paper trail do the work. That same day, I file a complaint with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I attach the police report number, the FTC report, and the list of fraudulent accounts. I ask for address change documentation, call logs, and any notary stamps used at closing. I note that certain items will require formal process. I am not trying to force doors. I am marking that I am present and watching. I set traps that respect the law. I create a honeypot email alias that looks like a minor typo of my name. I route it through a mailbox with access logs. I will use it only for new address verification requests when I speak to creditors. So any attempt to change details will ping me. I set up a separate phone line for creditor calls and record a consent notice at the start of each conversation. Illinois follows an all-party consent rule. I confirm consent before I record. I track every minute on a spreadsheet. Time, date, name, summary. I do not tell my family about any of this. I withdraw from the old patterns. I stop sending small money for late fees. I do not troubleshoot home Wi-Fi on FaceTime. I do not drive to the suburbs for random pickups. No one checks in. No one notices the silence. That stings for a day. Then it clears my head. I use the space to prepare. But they do not know what I am building. I am building competence into a wall. A forensic accountant joins my team on March 19. We draft a damages model that includes direct costs, legal fees, lost time, and credit impact. We map a timeline with sources for each entry. Credit reports, servicer notices, IRS letters. We plan discovery in the civil case for bank records and application files. We include a request to the recorder for any documents tied to the property. The county site shows the mortgage recorded in my name. That line alone tells part of the story. I know better than to pull private data without cause. I do not ask the Homeowners Association to hand over resident contact info. Instead, I note that any welcome packet or compliance notice sent to the property can be requested later by counsel. For now, I work with public records. I ask a realtor colleague to pull archived listing photos and agent remarks. I save the kitchen shots. The marble island has a distinctive vein pattern that curves like a river. It is a small detail. It will matter at the right moment. On March 20, I sit with Callie, my friend in crisis communications. She has me practice statements, keep it factual, keep it short, no adjectives, cite documents. She will coordinate with my attorney, not with me alone. Anything sent to Brands will come from counsel with exhibits attached. I feel my shoulders drop. We are not fighting in the comments. We are building a record. That is when everything changes. The fear starts to lift. The plan begins to carry some of the weight. I sleep for 6 hours in a row. I run by the lake at dawn and drink water. I am not performing resilience. I am protecting the machine that will carry me through a long process. 3 days later, on March 23, the mortgage servicer calls my new line. The rep confirms my fraud alert and logs my dispute. I ask the name of the closer on the file and the date of the signing. I ask if there was a notary and if a video conference was used. She tells me she cannot release the details without a formal request. I ask her to note my questions in the account and to hold all recordings. She agrees. I log the call. I spend the next week in quiet work. I build a binder with tabs, identity theft reports, police report, credit bureau disputes, IRS materials, public records, and listing images. A chronology. I print 2 sets, one for me, one for law enforcement. I create a slim version with only redacted documents. That is the one I will carry to any family setting. The redactions keep me safe. The dates keep me precise. Meanwhile, the family story moves on without me. My mother plans the monthly Sunday dinner for March 31. She believes a private talk will fix this. She asks me to be kind. She says Brianna is under stress from brand work and travel. I hear the old message again. Be useful. Do not make noise. I let the call end. I add one more tab to the binder. Family dinner, but they still do not know what is coming. I am not walking into a trap. I am walking in with witnesses and documents. I will not debate feelings. I will state facts. I will ask direct questions. I will not raise my voice. Public witnesses matter because people rewrite private history. I am done with that cycle. I take care of the basics. I move my savings to a bank where Brianna has never had an account. I set alerts on every balance. I separate my down payment fund from my emergency fund. I enroll in a continuing education course for fraud examiners. Small steps add up. They also keep me from spiraling. What happened next shocks everyone. It is not a chase. It is not a scene. It is a quiet reveal in a normal room. That is where the power is. I do not go alone. My binder goes with me. My calm goes with me. My line is simple. I will not be bullied by family guilt. I will not be baited into anger. I will not negotiate with someone who used my name to borrow a life. 3 days before dinner on March 28th, my attorney emails me a short note. The preservation letters have been acknowledged by the servicer and the title firm. The police report is now in the system with a permanent number. The IRS case is flagged as identity theft under review. The CFPB has routed my complaint to the servicer. Each item is a small click forward. I print the emails and tuck them into the back pocket of the binder. That is when everything truly changes. The plan is set. The dates are clear. The stakes are public. I am ready to step from private work into a room full of faces. I am ready to say out loud what the documents already say on paper. Sunday, March 31. My mother sets out pie and ice cream. Brianna props her phone on a ring light. The live counter starts to climb. Sunday, March 31. My mother sets out pie and vanilla ice cream. Brianna props her phone on a small ring light at the edge of the dining room. The live counter ticks up. 600, 800, over 1,000. I sit with my redacted binder in my lap and breathe through my nose. I am not here to argue. I am here to put facts on the table with witnesses already in the room and more watching through her stream. Dinner chatter runs light. Renovations, weather, travel. Brianna steers every lane back to herself. She mentions a partner named Jace who is traveling again. She says they are looking at investment property in Boston. Tyler, my cousin who works in banking, asks easy questions. Which lender? Which rate? What is the down payment? She jokes and changes the subject. My mother smiles like this is proof of a bright future. I keep quiet. The documents will do the talking. Dessert lands. The room settles. I ask Brianna calmly to pause the live so we can talk as a family. She glances at the viewer count and shakes her head. I nod once. Then I slide the police report toward the center of the table. The cover page is clean with my case number and date. Every personally identifying detail is blacked out. I speak clearly. I filed this report 3 weeks ago for identity theft. A jumbo mortgage for $1.25 million was opened in my name on a property at 720 Oak Ridge Drive, Lake Forest. A home equity line for $180,000 was drawn in January and March. 4 credit cards were opened for a combined limit of $120,000. A tax return was filed in my name seeking a $22,000 refund. I have never lived in that house. The only sounds are forks on plates and the ring light fan. I set a second packet on the table. It is the mortgage application and closing documents, each page stamped with the date we received it from the servicer after my counsel sent preservation letters. My signature appears. It looks like mine. It is not mine. The final page shows a notary stamp and the closing date. I do not speculate about the person behind that stamp. I do not accuse anyone of a specific act I cannot prove yet. I keep my lane. Dates, numbers, records. I add a single printed sheet that aligns Brianna's story on March 12 with a public listing photo. The marble vein on the kitchen island curves like a river bend. The photo in her story matches the curve. Public record, public post, public match. My mother starts to speak. I raise my hand and say one line. Please let me finish. I look at Brianna. I say I have filed with the Federal Trade Commission, with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, with the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit, and with the City Financial Crimes Detectives. I say the mortgage servicer has acknowledged our preservation request. I say the county recorder shows the mortgage recorded under my name. I pass a printed timeline color-coded by source. Servicer notices. Credit reports. IRS letter 4883C. I keep my voice level. The live chat scrolls fast. I do not look at the screen. Brianna says I agreed to help and changed my mind. Tyler leans forward. Which bank originated the loan? Who was the closer? What income did the application show? She cannot answer any of it. I turn a page. I show the pay stubs the lender received and the metadata analysis my attorney attached. The headers do not align with our payroll system. The creator software is a template generator. I stop there. My job is not to prosecute at this table. My job is to make the truth visible. That is when everything changes. My mother calls this a family misunderstanding and asks me to handle it privately. I shake my head once. This stopped being private when Brianna chose to stream. Also, privacy is not safety for victims. I am presenting redacted documents and public records. The police have the same set. I am not asking anyone to take sides. I am showing what exists. Brianna reaches for a different tactic. She offers to refinance. She says she will pay everything back. She says drop the report. I ask one question. With what income? The room goes still. I do not press. I do not shame. I let the air carry the question. Her phone lights up with an email banner. It is from counsel for a hair care brand she has tagged before. The subject line reads, Notice of suspension pending review of contract terms. Days ago, my attorney, not me, sent a factual packet to brand counsel with a short cover letter referencing morals clauses. No adjectives, only exhibits. Brands make their own decisions. I do not react. Tyler has already seen the banner. He understands what it means. What happens next shocks the people who still expected me to fold. Aunt Denise puts her glasses on and reads the police report cover page. She asks Brianna if she used my information without permission. Brianna looks down. She nods. It is a small movement. It is everything. My mother reaches for her hand and says we will fix this later. I speak one more time. The only fix is a full admission to the police and the creditors. The only safe path is the legal one. She can cooperate, or she can fight the paper trail she created. Either way, I am done being the soft landing. I pack the binder slowly. I leave one redacted copy of the police report on the table. I stand. I do not look at the live comments. I tell my mother I will go now. I tell her I will not discuss this in private messages. She can call my attorney if she has questions. I walk to the door. Behind me, there is noise. It is not my job to manage it. 3 days later, on April 3, Detective Collins calls. She says Brianna has been arrested and booked on felony identity theft, bank fraud, and forgery. She says Brianna is cooperating and has given a statement that confirms the use of my information without permission. I write the time and the case update in the margin of my notebook. I make tea. I sit on my couch. I let the quiet be the quiet. I do not cheer. I do not collapse. I thank my past self for the neat tabs. The transformation is not just legal. It is personal and professional. I keep my focus at work. In May, I complete the exam to become a certified fraud examiner. I log 200 hours of continuing education and pass on the first try. In June, my manager offers me a new title and a raise. Senior Compliance Investigator. 15% increase. A small retention bonus for the quarter. I accept and update my budget. My down payment fund, which took a hit when I paid legal retainers, starts growing again. I move it to a new high-yield account separate from my emergency cash. I set up an automatic transfer every other Friday. 50% of the raise goes to savings. 50% keeps my daily life comfortable without creep. But they do not know what I am still building. My credit score drops into the 500s after the foreclosure notice posts. I do not panic. I work the plan. My attorney files disputes with all 3 bureaus, attaching the police report, the identity theft affidavit, and the servicer letters. 1 card is deleted in 8 weeks. A second is blocked pending investigation. The HELOC trade line is marked disputed. The mortgage remains while the foreclosure runs through, which is expected. I install alerts and lock my reports. I measure progress in small wins. I celebrate each letter that removes a line from my file. I drink water. I sleep. Meanwhile, the family system fights clarity. My mother mortgages her house and posts $50,000 for Brianna bail. She does not call me for a month. When she does, she asks if I can please keep this off the internet. I remind her I am not the one streaming. I remind her I am speaking only through counsel and public filings. She sighs like I am the difficult one. That is not new. It just does not hold me anymore. Brands move on their own timeline. The hair care company issues a short statement. A home goods partner pauses content pending review. A boutique removes a lookbook from its page. None of that is my victory. It is their policy. The lesson is simple. Image is not proof. Evidence is. I add one more layer to the transformation. Callie helps me draft a public message I can share if needed. It has 4 lines. I am a victim of identity theft committed by a close relative. I am cooperating with authorities and following guidance from law enforcement and counsel. I will not discuss details beyond public records to protect ongoing processes and privacy. If you are a victim, start with a credit freeze and an FTC report, then collect documentation. It is not a clapback. It is a resource. I pin it to my mind and keep living. That is when everything changes again. In late summer, I sit for an internal panel on fraud prevention and walk through anonymized versions of my evidence trail. The room is full. New analysts ask clear questions. I answer them like I am answering myself from 6 months ago. Calm, patient, precise. After the session, my manager asks me to lead a workflow redesign. I say yes. Purpose steadies me. What happened next shocked everyone who thought this story would end at an arrest. It does not. Legal processes take time. Credit repair takes discipline. Family dynamics take boundaries. I am learning all 3. Progress is slow and real. By fall, my score climbs into the 600s again. 2 out of 4 fraudulent cards are gone. The 3rd is frozen. The IRS acknowledges my identity theft affidavit and marks my file. Small clicks forward. Clicks. 3 days later becomes a rhythm. 3 days after a dispute, a bureau posts an update. 3 days after a letter, a servicer replies with a receipt. 3 days after a status call, my attorney forwards a note. Not dramatic, steady. I keep one promise to myself. I will not let the process take my entire life. I go back to running by the lake. I buy a secondhand bike and ride the boulevard. I host small dinners for friends where no one mentions cases or scores. Peace is part of the work. The arc is visible now. Silent sufferer to secret builder to calm executor. The next stage is the reckoning, and it will not be a spectacle for me. It will be a series of lawful steps that make people say out loud what they did, then live with it. In November, Brianna stands in court and decides whether to fight paper or accept it, and I walk into a different room with a different kind of leverage. Early November 2024. The courtroom is bright and cold. Brianna stands with counsel and enters a plea. Felony identity theft, bank fraud, forgery. The agreement is filed on November 18. 6 months in county custody from January to June 2025. 5 years of probation. Mandatory financial counseling and community service. Restitution that tracks her earnings under court supervision. I sit 2 rows back and take notes. I do not look at her. I look at the paper. 3 days later, I get the written terms from the clerk. I scan and file them by date. I send a copy to my attorney and to my forensic accountant. We adjust our civil timeline to work beside the criminal case. That is when everything changes for me. Fear gives way to execution. Feeling gives way to systems. On November 26, the civil case reaches judgment. The court awards damages and attorney fees based on documented loss and time. Post-judgment interest applies by statute. My attorney prepares wage and non-wage garnishment papers. We also prepare a citation to discover assets, so any hidden streams must be disclosed. I do not send a single message to a brand. Counsel sends formal notice with copies of the judgment to entities that have paid Brianna in the last year. A talent manager receives service. A boutique PR contact receives service. The documents say only what is true. A court has entered judgment. Future payments are subject to lawful collection. No adjectives, no noise. Power looks different than people think. I do not shout. I do not post. I sign forms in blue ink. I show up for a short hearing. I answer the judge with yes, Your Honor, and no, Your Honor. I let the process pull on threads I can never reach with emotion. The pull works. A brand counsel replies that any pending invoices will be held pending court instruction. Another asks for the case number to remit funds under citation. Independent contractor payments are not wages, but they can be reached by a non-wage garnishment. My attorney handles the routing. I stay in my lane. My mother wants a show of unity before the sentence starts. She schedules a small gathering on December 14 at her home in Lake County, 20 minutes from Lake Forest. She invites relatives and a few neighbors who watched the rise and will now see the turn. I accept and set my own terms. I will not discuss anything outside public records. All questions go to counsel. I bring a slim folder with copies of the judgment and the orders. I do not bring the full binder. This is not discovery. This is clarity. The room is warm and crowded. Tyler stands by the coffee reading the judgment first. Aunt Denise sits near the window. A neighbor who once waved at Brianna SUV takes a chair by the hallway. Small talk dies fast. I wait until plates are down and hands are free. Then I speak. I say a court has entered a civil judgment in my favor. I say the order requires payment of damages and costs. I say post-judgment interest accrues until it is paid. I say I have recorded the judgment so it appears on searches. I say the court has issued garnishment and a citation to discover assets. I say notice went to entities that have paid Brianna before. I am not angry. I am precise. Power reveal. I hold the judgment they need cleared. I control the release when it is satisfied. I do not control her choices. I control my enforcement options and the timing of each step. I do not need her apology to move on. I need compliance with the law. The room walks through stages: shock, denial, anger, panic, desperation. My mother asks me to wait until after the holidays. She says pause would be kind. I say kindness is not selective enforcement. I say the schedule belongs to the orders, not to my feelings. Aunt Denise tells my mother to stop asking me to fold. Tyler nods and says the paperwork is clean. A neighbor whispers that they wondered how a part-time schedule covered a marble island and a luxury SUV. No one says the old lines. No one calls me jealous. Brianna says I am trying to ruin her future. I answer with one sentence. Your actions created lawful consequences. I am following them. She asks if I will at least speak to brands to get her paid so she can repay me. I shake my head. Court-supervised restitution exists, so personal pressure does not. This is what boundaries look like when family ignores every softer version. What happened next shocks the last holdouts. A hair care company sends counsel to confirm service. They place a hold on upcoming content and state they will comply with any court direction. A home goods partner suspends a rollout. A local boutique asks where to send a small check under the citation. None of that is a victory lap. It is gravity. Contracts and court orders obey weight, not wishes. I keep the message steady. I am not here to humiliate anyone. I am here to make sure the person who used my name pays the bill, the court wrote. I thank people who ask respectful questions. I decline to debate the past. I leave 2 copies of the judgment on the sideboard. I take my coat from the hook and walk into the cold air. For the first time in years, I do not feel like a service line. I feel like a person with boundaries that hold. 3 days later, I get an email from my attorney. The first non-wage garnishment payment has cleared. It is not large. It is proof that pressure can be lawful and quiet. We file a receipt and update the ledger. We also file a motion to extend the no-contact order through the first period of probation. Communications will stay through counsel. That is not punishment. That is safety. Through December, I keep living my life. I finish year-end projects at work. I renew my credit freezes. I write a 1-page guide for victims with 4 steps and 2 phone numbers. I go for runs at dusk along the boulevard. Peace and procedure take turns. January 2, 2025. Brianna reports to serve her sentence. My mother goes silent for a while. I do not chase. I meet Tyler for coffee near the courthouse 1 week later. He asks how enforcement will work while she is inside. My attorney has already filed the paperwork that allows restitution to run on its own track. I explain that civil interest continues. I explain that we will revisit in summer after release. Tyler nods. He says, I am doing this the right way. We part with a short hug. Validation is nice. It is not needed. But they did not know what I was still building. I am still rebuilding credit with the same patience I used to collect evidence. I work my dispute plan every 2 weeks. One bureau removes a fraudulent card. Another keeps a block in place. The mortgage remains while the foreclosure completes, which is expected. I accept the slow rhythm. I keep my health steady. I let the process be the process. That is when everything changes again. In March, the court clerk emails the certified copy of the recorded judgment. It is now visible on simple public searches. This matters more than pride. It prevents quick narratives that erase what happened. When people try to rewrite, there is a line in a public index that points back to the truth. I stage one last conflict-free checkpoint with witnesses. After Brianna's release date is set, I attend probation orientation not to watch her, but to confirm restitution systems exist. 5 minutes with the victim coordinator, updated contact info, and I leave. I don't need to see her face to know the process will run. That's the final lever. I go back to work. Family runs its arc dismissive, oblivious, shocked, powerless. Some stop calling, some send brief kindness. My mother holds 2 truths and looks tired. That's hers. I manage boundaries and credit repair. Good shock. Late spring, my manager asks me to redesign complex fraud workflows. I accept. Clean, measurable work. My savings grows. My emergency fund stays full. My apartment keys remind me I can leave when the math says go. Soon after the last fraudulent trade line clears, my score rises. The future feels enterable. I keep the cadence calm, steps clean, paper law before emotion. Reckoning isn't fire. It's a ledger balancing and a check clearing. June brings numbers that support a small condo near the blue line. June 20th, 2025. The final trade line is removed. Score 780. Down payment 51,000. Emergency fund intact. We run the numbers, they work. 3 days later, I lock a modest rate with a local lender. The underwriter reads every exhibit. Approval comes back clean. Closing disclosure matches the estimate. I initial each page. July closes warm. I sign take the keys and carry a plant upstairs. Sunlight trains quiet, not a prize safety. I breathe. This isn't back. It's forward. Inside urgency fades to rhythm. Restitution posts under court supervision. My attorney sends receipts. No contact remains. I don't announce boundaries. I use them. Family settles into a new shape. Monthly neutral calls with my mother. Brianna completes 6 months, starts probation counseling and steady payments. I track my life, not hers. I give short workshops on identity theft recovery checklists, calm sentences, tools in order, evidence law, then emotion. I build a life that doesn't depend on being the family fix, rides, simple dinners, friends on the balcony, sleep. At work, the new fraud workflow lowers errors and lifts the team. Meaning, not spectacle. The lesson respect grows where boundaries live. Calm is a tool. Evidence is a tool. Law is a tool. Use them, then go home and make dinner. The ending isn't fireworks, it's peace.